Hello everyone. Please confirm to me if you can hear me. Just post a message or a message in the chat, just to let me know that you are in and everyone is receiving and hearing my voice correctly. Also, let me know if the quality is fine, and then we can start in a few moments. Nice, that's perfect. So I see comments and messages coming in. So I guess we are good to go. I would like just to wait a few other minutes, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, just to wait for others to join. Maybe someone is joining a bit late, so we just wait a few moments and then we can officially start. And before we start, I would like to tell you something. So I'll just say it in 2-3 minutes. So the good thing is that I start to know and recognize almost everyone. So this is what I'm really happy about, is that we are building a community here, and everyone is getting to know everyone, and this is really something makes me really happy. So yeah. Maybe another minute and then we can start our streaming and our session for today. I will let you know what the session will be about, and then we can officially start. And by the end of the video, or like by the end of today's stream, I will let you know about the planning for the coming sessions. All right. Perfect. So yeah, I guess we can start now. First of all, just go ahead and like the video, because I see only 2 people liking the video, so I would like to see everyone hitting the like button. And also, like, later on, please leave me comments just to let me know your feedback and your opinion about the sessions, generally speaking. And yeah, so how it is going to be for today. So today, and like from now on. So like the sessions will be that like for each session I will prepare what we will see together. So I will start like doing things, implementing, and do all this stuff. And then by the end of the video, of course, like, we will have a chat all together where I will answer all your questions about things, about like if you have questions about what we did during the session. And yeah, it's gonna be this way. Also, as I mentioned before, all the videos and all the recordings will be available in my YouTube channel. Just go to the playlists, and then you will find the full stack. I think it's called full stack application or something like that, and between parentheses, members only. So there you can find all the records for each session. And yep, so it's gonna be this way, and then like I will try it for today's session, and then we will see how this is go. Or like if you want, we can also discuss about the format of each session, or like the future session, to just define the format that works for everyone. So about today's session, so we will discuss and we will see the business requirement of the application. So like because what we discussed and what we saw the last time, it was something brief. So today we will go deep into the discussion of the business requirement of the application that we will implement. We can also extend it in the future. It's not a problem, but for now, these are the things, or these are the topics and the features that I defined for this application. And after talking about the business requirements, we will move to the part where we will do the system design or the system architecture of our application. It's going to be something similar to what we discussed the last time, but it will be more organized comparing to the last time. And by the end, we will have our chat or like Q&A session where you get to ask me all the questions. All right. So I'm still waiting for the likes. Just go ahead and hit the like button so we can improve and help this video reach more and more people. All right. So now I guess we can officially start. All right. So in this part, we will discuss the business requirements for the application that we will implement during this tutorial or this bootcamp. So first of all, we'll start with the business requirement document, or also called BRD, and our application we will call it a game store application. All right, so the purpose and objectives. So the purpose of this application is to create a platform where users can browse, search, and interact with games in a virtual store, similar to the PlayStation Store. The platform will conclude community features like commenting, notifications, wishlist management, and game requests, along with administrative controls to manage games and users. So this is the requirement that we received from a customer who wants to implement such an application. So the key objectives are: we want to provide a seamless user experience for discovering and interacting with games, foster community engagement through comments and notifications, and also ensure a secure and user-friendly platform for both admins and users. So first we will start by talking and discussing the functional requirements. So among the functional requirements that were presented by our customer is first game management, community interaction, wishlist management, game requests, profile management, security and authentication, notifications, and UI UX features. So let's discover them one by one. First of all, we will talk about the game management. Admin features. So an admin can upload a new game with the following details: a title, a supported platforms, for example, a PC, PlayStation, Xbox, PSP, and so on and so forth, and then a picture which gonna represent the cover image for our virtual game that we want to upload in our platform. Admins can manage existing games, means an admin can edit and delete games, and this is only for like a part it's part of the admin feature. Also, admin can block users from accessing the platform. So for example, let's say a user just posts like an appropriate comment, so the admin can block this user from accessing the platform. Then we have a user feature among the game management. So a user can view the list of all published games. Users, they can search for games by title or supported platforms. So then we move to the next feature, which is community interaction. So for the community interaction, the customer precised that users can read game comments publicly without authentication. So like the user should not be authenticated in order to access or to read the game comments. Authenticated users, they can add a comment to any game, receive notifications for new comments on games they have previously commented on. So for example, when a user comments on a game called A, or for example, let's say the game The Witcher 3, so if he adds a comment to that game and another user also adds another comment to the same game, so all the users who have already commented on that game, they should receive a notification that a new comment has been added. All right. Also, a user can manage his notification preferences. For example, he can enable and disable specific types of notifications. And then an admin, or like the administrators, they can moderate and delete inappropriate comments. So for example, someone posts an inappropriate comment, so the admin have or like should have the possibility and the authority to delete this inappropriate comment, and even maybe reporting the user, or even deleting or like blocking this user. The next part is the wish list management. So for the wish list, users, they can add games to a personal wish list. They can also view and manage their wish list. Manage means add, remove games. All right? Then comes the next part, which is game requests. So users can request a new game to be added to the store. Admins, they receive notifications for new game requests. Once the game is added by the admin, the requesting user is notified. So this is how the game request, or like the flow of a game request. Just to clarify it again, a user, for example, he searches for a specific game, but this game is not yet available in the store. So what he can do, he can request a new game to be added to the store, and then the admins or the administrators, they receive a notification for a new game request. So they can go ahead and add this game, and once the game is added, the user who requested this game should be notified that the game was added or was created, and it's now available in the store. Then we have profile management. So users, they can manage their profiles, including updating personal details, for example, email, username, profile picture, and so on and so forth. Managing password and security settings. So a user should be able to update or to change his password accordingly, or like all the informations related to his profile. Then we talk about security and authentication. Also, like our customer is really aware and wants to have a well-secured application, and only the people who have the authorization to do such an action, they should be authorized, otherwise they should not be. So first, he said, only authenticated users can perform the following actions: add a comment, add games to their wish list, and submit game requests. So this is only for authenticated user. And then we want, like our customer, he wants to set up an airbag system. Airbag means role-based access control. So admins and users, they have distinct permissions. So not the same actions that can be performed by an admin are not the same actions that can be performed by a simple user or a classic users. So admins and users have distinct permissions, and only authorized actions are restricted. All right. So sorry, it's the other way around. So unauthorized actions are restricted. So for example, if a user wants to perform an action which only requires an admin access, so he should be restricted and he should not be able to do or to perform that action. And finally, our customer, he wants to secure the authentication, or like he wants to have a secure authentication mechanism such as OAuth or JWT will be implemented. Now moving to the next topic, notifications. So notification types include a new comment on games the user has interacted with. So like this is here, he is trying to explain when the notifications should be sent. All right. So when a new comment on games the user has interacted with, and also confirmation when a requested game is added to the store. So here, users can enable or disable the notifications for specific activities in their preferences. So for example, if the user, he does not want anymore to receive notifications for new comments added to a game, so he can disable or enable that from his preferences. Also the same when like if the user wants to disable or enable the receiving a notification for a new game request that has been added or created, so he can also do that. Now moving to the next part. So for the UI UX features, so our customer, he wants that the application should support light and dark mode for users accessibility. So like we know that users, they prefer light mode and others, they prefer dark mode. So our customer, he wants and he needs that the application should support this mode, like light and dark mode. Also he wants a responsive design to ensure the application is functional across all devices like a desktop, tablet, and mobile. So we need also to consider or to take this into consideration. Now moving to the non-functional requirements. So also our customer, it seems he knows a little bit about applications and he knows about so many stuff. So he also mentioned some non-functional requirements. First, he mentioned performance, scalability, security, availability, localization, and maintainability. So now we will see in details what he included in each part. First, we start with the performance. So the user, he wants that the application should handle up to 10,000 concurrent users without performance degradation. So this means what? So when the application has a fast response time when it works with, let's say, only 10 users, he wants to keep the same performance when the application reaches 10,000 concurrent users without any degradation. So if we have 10,000 connected users to the application and they perform all the actions and all the things that they can perform at the same time, so the application should respond in the same way. Then scalability. So the system architecture should support adding new features and scaling to handle increased users or like user traffics. So he wants to have an extensible or like an extendable architecture where we can add or support new features, and also like he wants to have scaling to handle increased user traffic. So if the application moves or like the traffic on the application moves from point A to point B, so I mean from point A to point B. So for example, like today we have 100 users or like 100 connected users on the application. In 1 or 2 months we have 1,000 or 5,000 or something like that. So the application should also be able to handle this traffic increase. Then security. So the customer wants to have a data encryption for all user interactions. So this means, like, just to make it easy for you, so this means like we want to have an SSL and a TLS communication from the browser up to the application. Also, secure password storage. So for example, we need to decrypt or like to encrypt the passwords and not store them in plain text to avoid any kind of issues or like security issues. So for example, if the database gets hacked by somehow, so like even like the passwords, they should be encrypted in the database. And then he wants also like protection against common vulnerabilities like SQL injection, XSS, and CSRF. Then availability. The customer wants 99.9 uptime with minimal downtime for maintenance. This means what? This means now we are working on a new feature and we want to deploy this new feature. So when deploying this new feature, we don't want to interrupt everything or like to interrupt the users for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, or like the time which is required in order to spin up or like to bootstrap the new version or like the newly deployed application. So he wants to keep a 99.9 uptime with minimal downtime for maintenance. And last but not least, he wants to have localization. So a multi-language support for the interface to create, to cater to a global audience. So the goal or the main objective of our customer is to move this application from a local application in somewhere in the world to a worldwide application. So he wants to support multi-language, for example, French, English, Arabic, Italian, Spanish, and so forth. So we need also to add or to consider this while working or while designing our application. And finally, maintainability. So the code base should follow industry standards and be well documented for future enhancements. So this means that, for example, we want to do some enhancements in the future, we want to add new members to the team, we want to do this and that on the code. So the code should follow the industry standards and it should have a documentation where, for example, a new joiner can easily set up his working environment and start working on the application Also, we want to add a new feature, so like the code should be well designed so we can extend and we can enhance our application in a smooth way. All right. So now we are done with the business requirements for our application. Now let's try to understand and start extracting information from these business requirements, or like this BRD, and then we will see how we can transform this to a system design, how we can design the architecture for our system in order to respond to all these requirements, the functional requirements and even the non-functional requirements. All right, so let's go ahead and start step by step. So here we start from the purpose and the objectives. So our user, he wants to create an application or platform where users can browse, search, interact with games in a virtual store, and so on and so forth. So here everything seems and looks to be fine, or like seems to be fine. Then we move to the next part. We want to provide a seamless user experience for discovering and interacting with games. So here we are mainly talking about UI, so we will let the UI team work on that. So we have community engagement, we have secure, friendly platform. So here, this is something that we need to consider, having a secure and user-friendly platform for both admins and users. So here, the first thing that we can identify is our application should support both admins and users. All right. So, okay, so now we start having, or like we start getting some information. Then let's move and try to understand the business, or like the functional requirements of the application. So the first thing is game management. So when we talk about game management, our customer mentioned that an admin can upload a new game with the following details. We have a title, supported platforms, and a picture. So I would like to highlight this one right here because this is super important. Why it is important? Because here in the non-functional requirements, our user mentioned something about availability. All right, so like here, first the availability, and we also talk about the performance of the application. So we will come back to this point later on. So like mainly we talk about performance right here. All right, so also admins can manage existing games, admins can block users from accessing the platforms. So this is also an important point when it comes to designing the application. So here we are talking about user management. All right, so user management is something important for our customers. So we need to take this into consideration. So what are the outcomes so far? Here we have a picture. So this means that we need to store our pictures somewhere in a storage system, or like a data storage system, and at the same time we want to make sure that the application performance still, or like stays at the top. All right, let's move to the next part. So here we have user features. So like users, they can preview list of published games. So this is also important because when we want to display the list of games, so here imagine we have 10,000 users connected to the application at the same time. So again, we need to ensure that the performance, or the application performance, still available, or like at its top. All right. So then also we have a search. So like users, they can search for games by title or supported platforms. All right, so here what do we have? So here we have community interaction. Users, they can read and comment publicly without authentication, and we have here some authenticated users. So like this, we will need it later on when we design the application itself. I mean like the backend application mainly, and also the front end. But now we are talking about the global design system for the whole application, like the architecture of the whole application or the whole solution. Also, we have here admins can moderate and delete inappropriate comments. So this is also fine. We will come back to this later on when we start designing our backend solution, or like the code solution. So then we have a wish list. This is also fine. We have game request. So like user can request a new game to be added to the store. Admins receive notification for new games. So here we have something. So like an admins receives, admins, they receive notifications. All right. So like we mentioned notifications a few times. So this is also something that we need to consider for our application design. or like for our solution design. Also, we have profile management. So the user, he should be able, or like users, whether it's an admin or a simple user, this is our understanding for the solution. If we have unclarified questions or unclarified features, we can also discuss again with our customer to clarify what is not clear. Then we have security and authentication. So only authenticated user can perform following action. So this is fine. We have also like a role-based access control. We need also to consider that when it comes to implementing the application itself. So also there is something which is important here. So the customer, he wants to have a secure authentication mechanism such as OAuth and JWT. So this is also something that we need to consider when it comes to designing the application. Then we mentioned notification before, so we will skip that, so it will not take too long. So we need to have a notification system. All right. So then we have UX UI. So this we will discuss it later on with the UI team. And then when it comes to non-functional requirements, we already discussed about the performance. We discussed the scalability. So this when it comes to the CI/CD and the infrastructure part, or like between quotes DevOps. And also security, this also comes later. And then we have the availability, we have the localization, so this is also, we can support it later on. And we have maintainability, so we will discuss this part. So now we want to discuss the global architecture of our application. So now let's start. All right, so let me remove the grid from here, and now we will start designing the application. So first of all, just let me know if you can see this diagram correctly. So if yes, I can move on. So here I will just rename the first one to global or application system design / architecture. All right, so let's discuss what we want to do. So here, all right, so here I will just put it to a draft, maybe, and then if it's final, I will remove the draft keyword. All right, so what we want to have here, I have some Scratchpad icons just to make everything simple, but I will start with something like this. So the first thing that we have here, we have a front end, or FE. So maybe let me write it, a front end application, and then we will decide for the technologies. So we have a front end application. All right. Maybe let me make it a bit bigger. Okay, so we have a front-end application. And then this front-end application needs to communicate with a back-end system. Okay, so here we will have our back-end application, or like back-end system. Let's call it this way for now. So we have a front-end application and a back-end application. So then this backend application, so our customer, what he mentioned. So here in this part, he mentioned that we want to store pictures, and at the same time, he wants the application to have high availability and high performance. So we need somewhere to store the pictures. Or like, so we want here to have a data storage system. All right. All right, so here we have, or like I will have my data storage. So in another way, my backend system should communicate with this data storage. All right, perfect. And then of course, for our application, we will have a database. So here, let's call it just simply DB. So like this is going to be a draft, and then we will finalize this project. So this is going to be my database, where we need, or like where we want to store our information. And then this data storage, so this is important. So our front end like here to ensure a high performance. So our front end will communicate with the backend, all right? But when it comes to data storage, it's better not to go through a backend application, because when we go to the backend application needs to communicate with the data storage, retrieve the data, and then send it back. So like we have two ways, or like we have like two things that we need to do. First, fetching the data, and then retrieve it, and then put it back. And this, when we talk about this, the backend will do some unnecessary processing, all right, or unnecessary operations, because he needs to fetch the data and then send it back to the front end. So for that case, what we can have what we call a CDN. All right, so like we need to set up a CDN, or like a CDN is a content delivery network. All right, so a content delivery network. So a content delivery network, it has so many advantages, like caching data, and also like we don't want to expose all the data, or like we don't want to expose our data storage to the public. So it's better to have something in between. All right, so our backend, he will communicate with a CDN. All right, so yeah, so our backend needs to communicate with a CDN to fetch the data, or to fetch everything, or like all the media which will be stored into our data storage system. So like the CDN will communicate with this one, and then the application, or the front-end application, will consume the data from there. So now the first thing that we gained is that we reduced the load on the backend system. So we no longer need to go to the backend just to retrieve some media or some data. All right. So now we have everything available in our data storage, or in our CDN right here. Then what we want to do, or like what we want to have, we want to secure our application. So here, let's say security. We want to secure our application. And when it comes to security right here, so let me find it. All right, so here, so this is about not the security that I'm looking for, not even this one. Yeah, so our customer, he wants to secure or to have an authentication mechanism such as OAuth 2 or JWT will be implemented. Also, we want to have this one, or like this check, or this control right here, but there is something important, yes, in the profile management. Also, users, they can manage their profile, including updating personal details, username, profile picture, so this is important, and also like managing password and security settings. So for that, what we need, so we will have our security system, and both our front end and our back end, they will reach out to this authentication or like this security system. We don't know which one yet, and they will use it in order to secure the application. All right, so now we are done with the security part. Also, what we have here, we have this performance. We also have among the requirements, just a second, let me find it. Yes, so the users, they can view the list of all published games, search for games, and so on and so forth. So viewing the list of published games. So this is important for us, or like for me when I design the system, these few things, they have like an indication for me. So what this means, so like first of all, like how I would think about this. So we have a game store. So the data, they are somehow, or like at some point of time, the data will become kind of static. What I mean by static. So we will create in the beginning, let's say 100 game and publish it to the store. So for how long, or like how often would I change and update or adjust these 100 games? Let's say once every month, which is totally fine. All right. So here, when we talk about some data that might be or like that has less or like few modification, so like we don't change so often the data or like the information of this data. So the first thing that comes to my mind is to store or like thinking about caching the results. All right. So here, what we can do. So here, let me try to find an icon. I don't know, like we will change all this. So now it's just a draft, and then we will have a well-designed or like a better diagram for that. So maybe I can use this one, maybe. So like here, I will say a cache or like a caching system. All right. So my application. So here, my application, instead of fetching the database for some static information or some static data, I would go to the cache first. All right. So here the cache is not something in between the database and the application, but it's something that works in parallel at the same time. All right. So here, this also will improve the performance of my application, because imagine here, just to do the calculation, imagine like requesting the data from the database takes 1 second, or like let's say maybe 2 seconds, just to request the list of games when a user performs a search, or like he wants to access all the games. When going to the cache, or like fetching it from the cache, it's gonna take less time. Why? So here you might ask the question, why it's gonna take much less time? Because when going to the database, so the database, it will be deployed on a separate server. All right. So a separate server, it might be located in the same location, or even like a different location. So we have some network traffic in here to go from the backend application to the database. So we have some network traffic. We have some traffic in here, but the cache will reside and will live next to the backend application. So like it's gonna be an in-memory cache. All right. So accessing the memory is much faster than performing a query through the network. All right. So this is why having a cache right here will improve significantly the performance of my application. Also, if you want to do more, also in the front-end side, if you want to, in the front-end side, we can also set up a cache right here. So it might be the same cache, or like we can have another caching system, but just duplicating the job doesn't make sense. So we can whether point our backend system to this cache. So like sorry, not the backend, but the front end. So the front end will directly retrieve the data from the cache, but it's always better to go through the backend application. Why? Because we might, for example, like here in the backend, we will have a centralized control over almost everything. So for example, let's say in the future, only authenticated users, they can fetch, or like they can search for games. All right. So if we do that, we need to do all these updates in the front end, and maybe also in the backend, and so on and so forth. So like it's better to centralize it into one place. All right, so this is how, or like from these requirements, from these business requirements, this is how I started identifying the building blocks of my application. So as you can see here, when we talk about system design, or like the system architecture, I'm not talking about a database. I'm not talking about diagrams. I'm not talking about classes. I'm not talking about anything. So just from some needs, it's not only a front end and a back end application. We have a lot more. All right. So now let's try to identify step by step what should be, or like what are the technologies that might be, or like the best suitable for our solution. So the first thing, I will just put this draft in here. So I will just put it in here, and now I will just remove the draft from the title, and this is gonna be our final diagram. So I will remove everything. So we will have this one as our reference, and then we will start putting the building blocks. So here we have a front-end application. So let's bring Angular. So like we will use Angular for the application, just assuming that the customer gives us 100% the freedom, or like the freedom 100% to decide what are the technologies, which is the case because customers, they are not so much technical. So it's up to us to decide. And for us, we had a meeting and we discussed, and we voted for Angular for the front end. So we will come back to this later on. Also, I will have here my backend system. All right. So here I will have my backend system. So for the backend, we will use Spring Boot. All right. So we will use Spring Boot for the backend. So this is the backend part. Now what do we have? We have a database. So let's bring a database here. Let's search for database and let's put it in here. So we know that my backend system, or like my backend application, will communicate with this database. And also the front end will communicate with the backend. So like we will be sending requests and receiving response and so forth. Then what do we have here? We have a data storage and a CDN. So for that, we will use a cloud solution for that. So why using a cloud solution? Because we don't want to carry a lot about all the stuff, like for example, like securing the data, encrypting the data, who can access what, and all this stuff, like managing the hard drives if we run out of storage, and so on and so forth. So like having a backend solution will help us, or like will make our life much easier. All right, so now maybe this one I can put it like this, just to reference AWS in here. So maybe let me search for AWS logo. Okay, I guess we don't have it, but it's okay. So now let's start talking about the storage system. So for that, we can use an S3 bucket. Okay, so an S3 bucket is, so we will discuss it in details when it comes to this part. So an S3 bucket is a service, is a cloud service provided by AWS, by Amazon, which give us the possibility to store any type of media. All right, so now my backend needs to communicate with this S3 bucket. So my backend, so like this is my full backend. So when I want to store the profile picture, or like whether the profile picture or like the profile picture, for the game, or like the cover for the game, like the cover picture. This is the correct word. So the cover picture, I will not store it in my server or like in my backend system, but I would like to store it in here. Then we spoke, or like we mentioned, that we want to have a CDN right here. All right. So now for the CDN, we can use CloudFront. We can use CloudFront, which is also like a CDN service from Amazon. So my CloudFront will be linked to my S3 bucket, and then my front-end application, or the Angular application, will retrieve the data directly, or like the media directly from the CDN. So there is no need that my front end goes to the backend, and then the backend goes to S3 bucket, retrieve the data as a binary and send it back. So like a binary data, it might be like so like important in the size. So this might also impact my application performance. All right, then we spoke about caching, because we know that the users, they will search for, or like they will do search on games, and they can perform search, they can see the list of games, and so on and so forth. And then we discussed, or like we assumed, that the list of games is a list that might not be changing frequently. So like even if the data does not change for 1 hour, for example, or even less, or even more, like starting from 1 hour, like plus 1 hour, sorry, I forgot the name or the word. So like if the data does not change for at least 1 hour or even 30 minutes, it's really important and a good practice to have a caching system. All right, as I mentioned before, and as I explained before, even here, like it's not always a database, but we might need, or like we might want to retrieve this data from a downstream API, or like from another API. So this means that we have a traffic in here. So like retrieving the data, storing them into a cache, this also will improve the performance of the application. So for that, one of the solutions, or like one of the most recommended solutions for this case, is using a caching system. And Redis is one of the best caching systems on the market. It's an open source solution. We will also discuss it in details in the coming sections. So it's really performant, and Redis is a database, like a an in-memory database with a really enhanced algorithms to store and fetch the data. So which is super important to know that and also to use it, and it's also required and well demanded in today's market. All right, so this is the caching. Then what do we have? We want here, we discussed about the security. Okay, so let's go ahead and add Keycloak. So why using Keycloak? Like for me, for example, one of the advantages for using Keycloak, first, it's free, it's open source, and like you can extend it, you can add so many things, and also you can do everything which is possible to do within other auth providers. And as I mentioned, one of the most important things is it's open source and free to use. So our security, we will have now our backend, the front end. We need to authenticate or like to check every or like all the tokens that they are valid, and the tokens they will be issued from Keycloak, and then Angular needs to connect to Keycloak in order to manage or like to do all this part. All right, so now normally I would link this one directly to the backend. Okay, so like Keycloak, we want to link it directly here. But since we are using Keycloak, or even if we want to use something else, so Keycloak, one of the things that Keycloak does not support is, for example, storing the profile picture. So Keycloak does not support profile picture. Okay. So, but this is not only the reason. This is not the only reason. So here, when we talk about, all right. So I think it's in here, or maybe, yes, this one. So here we mentioned that admins, they can block users from accessing the platform. All right. Also here we said that the user, he can update his profile. So we have also like profile management and so forth. All right. So like the user or like users, they can manage their profiles. So this is one reason. So like Keycloak gives us all this possibility out of the box. And for that, we will use the Keycloak API in order to communicate with the Keycloak system, to create, manage users, do all this stuff. So like even like for the front end, only the users, they will have the register interface activated. But for admins, for example, for the super admin, he wants to create another admin for the application. So he needs to do it through the UI and not enable this directly for the users. So like the registration will be only available for simple users. So this is one thing. Also, when we have, or like when we want to display the information. So for example, I want to display the comments for the users. Okay. So when displaying the comments, I want to display the profile picture, the name, and the comment itself. We know that from Spring Boot, okay, we can retrieve the data. We can retrieve all the data of a user when the user authenticates from the token, but we don't want to overload the token with maybe unnecessary information. So this is the first one. The second one is when we retrieve the list of comments from the database. So this means like for each comment on a game, so let's say just simply, so let's say for example a game has 10 comments. So we need to do 10 requests to Keycloak to retrieve the user information in order to have an object with the information of that user. So for that, what we can do, we can implement something. So here we can implement a listener. So we will have a listener in here. So our Keycloak will communicate, or like, sorry, it's the other way around. So the listener will be connected to Keycloak, and then this listener will communicate directly with our backend. All right. So here, as I mentioned, it will be a listener in here, and this one will be implemented using Java. So we will implement something. It's going to be really cool. I ensure, or like yeah, I ensure you that sorry, the word didn't want to come out. So like we will implement something which is really cool. And even like for this one, why I mentioned Java, because it will not be a Spring application, because when we implement listeners, frameworks are not supported. So like it needs to be like a plain Java or like a Java application. But trust me, this is going to be something really cool. Even like we will see, and I will teach you how to perform or to send requests to our API here and all this stuff. All right, so now we have almost the full picture of our application. Maybe I can switch some colors in here, or maybe not. Okay, maybe let's leave it this way. Okay, because just here we have some kind of backgrounds. So all right, maybe let's keep it this way. It should be fine. And this one, let's give it this color. All right, so now we still have one thing that we need to implement. So we have a notification system. So we want to set up a notification system. So when it comes to notification system, we have, or like we might think of two types of a notification system. So we have a real-time notification system and we have an asynchronous notification system. So for that, what we can have, so we will have something like this. So let me just fix it in here. So we will have something like this. So we will have a message queue. Okay, let me just add a text. So we will have a message queue. So like it doesn't really matter which technology that we want to use. We can use RabbitMQ, we can use Kafka, we can use anything, we can use even a web socket. So here a message queue, and here I will just type between parentheses, I want to set up a web socket. So maybe let's just write it this way, just maybe it's better and more understandable. So I want to set up a web socket. So my web socket, it will communicate with this message queue. And then my backend, of course, he will be the one sending or like producing these queues right here. All right. So, okay, so we have an envelope right here, and let me change the color, make it black, and yes. So we will be like our backend application. It will be producing some messages. So here, this will be the producer. So like produces, and this one, it will be the one who subscribes or like consumes. All right, so my front-end application will consume all the notifications that will be coming from my backend system. So this way, I can ensure that I will have a real-time notification system. But also, we need to think about the missed notification. So because having like setting up a WebSocket or like receiving the notifications through WebSocket requires that the user is connected to the WebSocket. So like the user needs to be active on the application. All right. So for that, we will also like have the design, like among the backend design for our application, we will also store the missed notifications or like the notifications, generally speaking. All right. So now this is the real-time notification. But here, what do I have? So maybe let me try to move this a little bit here. So here what do we have? So we have a user, right? So like the user will be the one to use my application. So like the user, okay, so this will be my user. So the user, as I mentioned, he will be the one to use the application. And then here in my system, I want to have also another type of notifications. As I mentioned, asynchronous notifications. So for example, if the user is not connected, or like he's not available, or he's not immediately connected to the application, I want also to let him know that something happened, or like a new comment was added, or like a new game was created, and so on and so forth. So what I can do here, so here maybe let's search for email if we can have. Okay, so let's say this is an email service. So we will have here email service. So what we want to do, we want here to have a feature or an application that will send, that will okay, it's not good. All right, so sorry, I will just redo this part. Okay, and then I can use this icon right here. All right. Okay, so this will be my email service. And this one I can put it here. All right. Okay, just I wanted to look nice. All right, so now, as I mentioned, this will be my email service. So for this email service, we can also have something. We can have two solutions. So whether the backend application will just send or like use this email service. So like email service, just imagine it's not an application. So here, like for now, it's not an independent application, but it's just a class or a service that sends an email. So whether my backend application directly sends an email to the user. All right. So like here we will send directly an email to our user. But this might downgrade the performance of the application. So here we need always to think or like to consider this. All right. So we have this one, and we also have the availability or like the 99% up. Okay. So this is about the uptime, but the most important is the performance of the application, because sending an email might take some time. All right, especially if the email is quite long, or like the template is a bit complicated, and so on and so forth. So now what we need to do, or like what is the best solution? So the best solution here is to use a queue. All right, so like here we can use a queue, or like a message broker. So I will just put this like this in here, and now let me add it. Now we talk about a message broker. All right. So here for the message broker, we can use RabbitMQ or Kafka or anything. So we don't have the icon. I will add it later on. All right. Just a second. I will add the RabbitMQ icon. So okay, so this is gonna be my RabbitMQ system. All right, let me add it to Scratchpad. Okay, so now what will happen in here? So my backend application now will just queue or like send something in here. All right, so my backend application will send a notification or an information to my service, or like to my email service, just informing him that you need to send a new email. So maybe let me take this one and put it in here. So this means that you have a new email to send, and then the email service will consume this one. Maybe I guess I need to switch. Okay. And here none. All right, so my my email service will connect, or like will be subscribed to this message queue in order to consume all the emails and then send it. So like this one will work in an asynchronous way. So also this will not impact the performance of the application, because just queuing a message is super fast. So we will not have a performance or like performance issues for my application. All right, so this is globally. So maybe let me here try to change a little bit the colors, and this one, let's give it this. So maybe RabbitMQ, something similar to RabbitMQ. and we can use this one. Yep. Okay, so this is globally the design of my application. So this email service, we can use any technology. So maybe let's say it's gonna be another Spring Boot application that will send, or like that will perform the or like sending the emails to our customers. All right, customers, or like the application users, generally speaking. So here, this is gonna be a key clock listener. So this is my key clock listener. So this one will listen, and here it's gonna be maybe a Postgres SQL. I guess we have. All right, maybe let's use this instead. All right, so this is my database. So here I have my AWS setup, and here I have my WebSocket, or like my broker for the WebSocket. And here this is the front-end application, which will be an Angular application. And this one will communicate, or like will secure the application, like will use Keycloak to secure the front-end side. And here I have my backend system, or like my backend application, where I will have Spring Boot as a framework, Java, and also Redis cache just to store and reduce the load on the database. And here for the listener, what we will see is each time a new user gets created, so we will be able to fetch all the data from Keycloak, like all the necessary data, that the data we need for our backend, or like for our system. So we will have the information. We will store them into our system, into our database, and in this way, so we will be able to manage, or like then to return the full information of our user. Also, like for this S3 bucket, it will not only store the game or like the game cover picture, but we will store all types of media, and our CloudFront will connect to the S3 bucket in order to provide all the media information. So the backend, or like the front end application, does not need to go through the backend in order to retrieve this data. So here, let me just write the title in here, maybe this way. And now let's call this one Global System Design, or like Application System Design. All right, so here let's increase this one a little bit, and maybe let's give it 48. All right, so now we are done with this part. So now here, let me first save. I will save it later on, and also we will provide all this information all together. So here we will need later on. So this will be the database design in here. So like this is gonna be the database design. So this one is just the draft. So I will keep it also, so it's not a problem. So now. Now let's recap what we did in here. So we started from a business requirement which was provided from a customer. All right. So this business requirement did not, or like provided us with valuable information, with valuable things that helped us to decide what the architecture of our application should look like. Again, I want to highlight, when we talk about an application architecture, or an architecture generally speaking, we are not talking about the organization of the code into packages, folders, subfolders, and so on and so forth. We are not talking about database design. So like, since now we did not talk about the an ERD, or like a database design, or even class diagrams, and so on and so forth. We did not talk about anything. So here, just from some usages, or like from some information that our customer provided, we started from here. So we have a picture, all right, a picture, or it might be any type of media. So like here, what attracted my attention in here is that we have a storage. We need to store something. We need to store some data, some media, and so on and so forth. So when it comes to storing data, and if this data is eagerly fetched means that it's part of the main functionality of our application. All right, so maybe let me try to do this. All right, so here we talk mainly about storing data. Just one second. Yep. All right, so here we talk about storing something. So we want to store something which is eagerly fetched and used by the end user. So we talk about pictures, we talk about videos, audios, and so on and so forth that we need to use, or we want to use in an eager way. An eager way means it's not something that I want to store. So for example, we are not talking about billings or something like that, where for example we generate an invoice, send it to the customer, and then we need to save a copy of that invoice somewhere in our server. For example, for some legal reasons, we need to store the invoices for 10 years, for example, or like for 5 years, and so on and so forth. It depends on the rules of the country or the laws of that country. So for that, we might not need a CDN, because the data, it will be kind of a freezed data, or like a cold data. Cold data means a data which is not accessible eagerly. All right. So here we have a picture. So we have pictures of the games. So picture of the game, we need to fetch it always. So the first thing I need to think about, first, it's a good practice to externalize the storage, even if it's not a cloud solution. All right, even if it's not a cloud solution. For example, if I decide not to use an S3 bucket, okay, if I decide not to use an S3 bucket service, I would store it in a separate server, for example. All right, but then I need to think about having a CDN. So like here, since we decided to use AWS, so that's why like having or using CloudFront with directly S3 bucket, it's gonna make my life much easier for the configuration, for the access, and so on and so forth. But assuming that we want to use a different storage system, or like a different server where I will store my data, always think about having a CDN in between. All right, so having a CDN will make the life much easier and will improve the performance of the application. Also, talking about CDNs, we can also set up CDN on the front end side. This means, like for example, so we will not do it, to be honest. It's not gonna be in this bootcamp, or like in this course, but just to give you some insights. So we can also have a CDN, or like a caching system somehow on the front end side. Depends, like it's really independent from the technology. So in this way, what this CDN will do, so it will try to calculate, or like to notice what are the static pages that they do not, like it's the same way as a CDN. So the static pages that do not change often, so it will be cached. So when the user accesses this page, instead of rendering the full page from the server where the application is deployed, it will automatically just return this content, and the response will be much faster comparing to fetching the data, or like accessing the page directly on the server. All right, so from one notice in here, from one information in here, I thought about, or like I set up two different services, which is a bucket to store the data and a CDN to improve the performance of fetching the data. Then we have a search. So this one just notified me, or like gave me the idea that because it really depends on the context. So here we want to have a high performant application, as the customer mentioned, and also at the same time we have, or like I noticed that the data, it might be cached. Okay, so there is a possibility to cache the data. So what we can do, we can cache the data, for example, for 1 hour, and every hour we can wipe the cache and then cache it again. So so for example, as I mentioned, if accessing the database, or like fetching the data from the database, takes 2 seconds, getting the data from the cache, it's gonna take much less. It's gonna take milliseconds. All right, so even having using or like losing 2 seconds to fetch the data every 1 hour in order to cache it, it's totally acceptable. All right, so like this means, so like how you can imagine this. So this means that on the application side, every 1 hour you will have a kind of a glitch on the application. So like the application, it might be a little bit slow or like 2 seconds slow because we are fetching the data from the database. But for another 59 minutes, 59 minutes and 57 seconds, we will have the application performing extremely well. All right, then from that, what do we have here? So we have a community interaction here. So we have comments, we have authentications, we have comments, we have notifications, and so on and so forth. So from the notification, I thought about having 2 systems, or like 2 different notification systems. A real-time notification system. So here, for example, we can use WebSocket, or we can even use Firebase or any real-time notification solution. So we opted for WebSocket because for the sake of this course, why using a WebSocket? Because I want to teach you how to set up a WebSocket, how to manage it, how to handle it, and so on and so forth. Because Firebase is just configuring, connecting to the Firebase, and that's it. But the real pleasure and the real advantage is when you set up your own WebSocket system, or like WebSocket server, if we might call it so. So when we spoke about notification, we said, okay, I want to have a WebSocket in here where my backend will produce the message and the front end will consume it and display it to the user. Then we spoke also about a different type of notifications, which is asynchronous notifications, or like let's say offline notifications. Offlines comparing to the application itself, not if the user himself does not have internet connection, but if the user is not connected to the application. So the user can receive emails notifications. So like here we can decide for email or SMS or any other type of notification. So we opted for an email service. Then why we have something in between? Because we know that sending an email might take some time, all right? And this sometime might be super important, because here, let's go back to this, because you should not forget about this. We talk here about handling 1,000 or like 10,000 concurrent users. If we have, let's say, 10,000 concurrent or like connected users at the same time, and I need to notify all of them at the same time, like you can imagine the load and the time required to send the notifications or the emails to all the users. So what should be the solution here? Like the solution is to use a queuing system. A queuing system means a message broker. So here, sending or like queuing a message to the broker, it's something we can negligate. So like it's something, it's really nothing, because it's gonna take few milliseconds. All right. So we just send a notification in here. I want to send an email to this user. So like it's a bunch of information that we can decide for later. And then my email service, which will be a different application. So we can implement it in here, but it doesn't make sense since it's gonna be like, it's gonna load the same application. So here, the best solution, or like the most suitable solution, is to have a different application. So here we just chose or like decided for Spring Boot, but it can be a JavaScript, a Node.js, or any other solution that will just consume the data from the message broker and then send an email to our final user. All right. Then the next thing here, when we go back here, we spoke about security and authentication, and we want to have an authentication mechanism such as OAuth, JWT, and so forth. So for that, we opted for Keycloak, so we can use any other solution. It might be even a paid solution. And also, even like just to let you know, maybe with the paid solution, we will not need a listener, all right, just to retrieve the data. Maybe we can have something that supports profile pictures and supports so many stuff. But for our case, our customer wants to reduce the costs for like not the development costs, but the costs for the application later on. So So he said, okay, I can pay for cloud storage, I can pay for a CDN usage, I can also, like, he needs to pay for the database, of course. But for example, he said if it's possible to have or like to have something open source or like something which is for free, for example, for security, I would really like to have. So that's why we decided for Keycloak. Okay, and this is not the only advantage of using Keycloak. Keycloak has so many advantages, and one of them is it's open source and free. So then we thought about, what if how here in my application I have comments. I need every time to send back the request to the front end, I need, or I want to show or to display the information of the user. All right, so I want to display the information of my user, so like the first name, last name, and so on and so forth, and the profile picture and all this stuff. So for that, what if I don't set up a listener? What should I do for when I retrieve the data, whether from the cache or from here? But comments, maybe it's not something worth caching because it might change often, because like when storing a list of comments of a given game, so like people, they will keep interacting. So like every time, or like every second or 2 seconds, I need to wipe the cache and then cache again, wipe the cache and cache again. So it doesn't really make sense. It's not a data that will remain static for some time. But we can also set up another mechanism to cache the comments, saying, for example, if the cache or like if the comments for a given game ID did not change since, I don't know, like 1 day, 2 days, we can cache it, and so on and so forth. So there are so many solutions for that. So let's go back to this topic. So instead of for each comment hitting the Keycloak API to retrieve the data, or like to retrieve the user information, so like imagine for 10 comments I need to go to Keycloak 10 times. Imagine for 1,000 comments, so like I need to go there for 1,000 times. All right, even if I have pagination, even if I don't return all the data, but finally, or like at the end of the day, I need to hit Keycloak 10,000 times or like 1,000 times to retrieve all the information. So instead of doing that, I will set up a listener in here, or I can set up a listener in here. When a new user creates his account, I will get notified by the listener, and then the listener will communicate with my backend to create or like to update this user information. And the listener can listen on many events. Among the events, first of all is like the first thing is when the user registers. So this is the main event that we want to listen to, and then we want to update our database. Then here we spoke about user profile. All right, or like profile management. So like the user needs to update his details. So when it comes to this part, what I want to do, I need to update it in 2 places. So the first thing, I need to update it into Keycloak and make sure that the update was successful in Keycloak, and then I can just update the user information that I have already stored into my database. And when it comes to this one, just a spoiler, so like spoiler alert. So this is what we will see in the future. So here we said that user can update his details, email, profile, and profile pictures. So if the user only changes his profile picture, we don't need to update anything on Keycloak, because we know on Keycloak we don't have profile pictures, so we don't need to do that. So like it's gonna be really like just an update on the database side. Sorry. Other than that, we need to update on Keycloak, and as well as updating on also on the database side. All right, so this is the design of the application, and also the business requirement. So these are the business requirements of the application that we will implement during this course. And this is how the global architecture or the global system design of my application, how it will look like. All right. So I hope everything was clear. So now I guess we can move on to the Q&A session, and we can discuss all together. And the first thing I would like to know, what do you think about this format for now? And if it's fine for you, we can keep it this way. Otherwise, we can also like change, and I'm open to any suggestion. Just meanwhile, just go ahead and type your comments, and yeah, I will switch to the other view in few seconds. So like I will be waiting for your comments. All right. So just confirm to me if you can see my picture, and then I will start answering all your questions. Just write yes in the chat, and I will know that you can hear me and everything is good. Okay, perfect. So now I will start reading your questions, and I will start answering them. Okay, so I will start with this question right here. So hello, I got a question. How we will upload a photo from data storage? In my job, I'm getting encoded in base64 file and saving him into a menu storage. Then I save in my table path to this file in menu. All right, so this is also one way to save pictures. All right, so we can encode it to a base64 format, so like it's going to be a string, and we can save it to a database, for example. But we just come back to the same thing. Is just we need to fetch the data from the database, from the system, and it's rather having it's better having a CDN instead. All right, so this is also like one of the ways to do things. All right, so another question. So will you use any message queue system like Kafka, RabbitMQ, or anything else? Yes, I think I already answered this question in the design. So we will use RabbitMQ for the mailing part, or for the offline notifications. Right, so here we have wow, the technology stack on this application is wonderful. So like what I wanted to mention in here, or like what I wanted to show you in here, is like the application or the solution, or the application that we will build itself, it's not huge. So like it will have a few screens, like games, retrieving games and all this stuff, but you see in the in the back, or like behind such an application, we need so many things, and we need to consider so many stuff. So like technology wise, it's really important. And that's why, because this, even if we want to implement a different application and increase and have more and more features and more business requirements, this will not really change anything, because for this bootcamp I really want to focus on the technologies and on the things that we need to learn, which is required in today's market. So all right, this is looking exciting already. I'm really happy to know that. Okay, another question from Sifeddin. Can we customize the Kicklog default login and registration pages? Yes, we can do that. We can do anything with Kicklog. Kicklog, like the UI for Kicklog, is implemented using FreeMaker, and FreeMaker is also like open source, and you can do anything. You can do anything you want with that. So like you can customize everything. All right. Okay, so from Carlos, could you repeat how we are going to implement WebSocket part? I did not get it very well. So we will implement, or like we will set up a WebSocket server within our application, and the front end will connect to that WebSocket server. Like we will have the front end connecting to the back end, or like through this WebSocket server. So when we want to send a notification, we just push it to the WebSocket server, and then the front end will consume it directly from there. I hope I answered your message, or your comment, or your question. If not, just ask me again. All right, so that's nice. The stack is fascinating. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Okay, so could you please explain what is the difference between performance and scalability? Non-functional request, because explanation was so similar. All right, this is a good question. So let me open my drawing tool, and here, all right, now you should see my second screen, or like not the second screen, but my drawing tool. So here, when we talk about performance, so the question was, what is the difference between performance and scaling? So performance, so here we're talking about the application itself. So we talk about the application itself. So this means that the application should be able to handle a huge or a large load on the application. So this means, for example, you go to an office, or like a post office, for example, and this post office, you have only one person working there. Just an example to explain the difference between the performance and the scalability. So you have only one officer working in this post office. So an officer can handle user or a customer every 1 minute. So each customer, he will take 1 minute to finish his request. So this means that for 1 hour, for example, we can handle 60 customers. All right, so this is the performance. And the performance, so what we want to have is that the application, our application, the one we want to implement, should be able to handle at least 10,000 users at the same time. All right, so we need to find a way, we need to implement a solution with the scaling and so on and so forth. So here, for example, what we can do here, when we talk about performance, let's say that we have an agent in here. All right, so like we have an agent that will do, or like that will process the customer request. So what one of the solutions is we can have multiple instances. All right, so we just need to increase the number of agents that are working in the post office. So in that case, we can process, for example, three customers at the same time. All right, so this will increase, like we will go from serving 60 users or like 60 customers per hour to serving 180 customers per hour, and so forth. So this is about the application performance. So here also, like this is we call this, like this operation that we did in here, so scaling. All right, so we just do a scale. We just increase the number of the machines or the number of instances that of the application that are working right now. But the scaling that I was talking about, or like the customer required, is we have an application, or like the application is already up and running. All right, and now I have a new feature. So here, let's say we have a feature, like a new feature which is ready, and we want to deploy it. Okay, so so here, let's say we have a bunch of users connecting or using the application. So then here, when we talk about scaling, or like having the app, let's say V2, we want to have it up and running. What I want to do, or like what I have to do, I need to forward all these requests from this app to the new app without stopping these users. For example, let's say the operation takes 10 minutes. So I don't want to block the applications from the users from using the application for 10 minutes, but I just want to spin up this one. When this application is up, I want to forward all the requests to the new instance. So this is the scaling that I was talking about in the business requirements. All right, so let's go back and keep answering the other questions. All right, so when we start writing a web application, please tell us more about the technologies, features that we will use. Yes, so this is what we will start seeing in the next session. So the next session we will start by setting up the repo, like the repository that we will be using. Also, like I will include all the resources that we see in here, the business requirement, the diagrams, and all this stuff. All of that will be available in the repository that we will be using. Yes. All right, so next question: is it possible we can include a monitoring part for the application? But this is going to be at the end of this session. All right, so another question from Junior: you save images in database and S3, and I'm a bit lost with the process. How does it really work? I wanted to let you know I don't have the Discord access. Can we get the okay, so like so many questions. All right, so yeah, for the Discord access, just send me an email and with your Discord ID, and I hope you just try to find the Discord server link from one of the videos. Otherwise, just email me and I will send you back the Discord server link. And if you are already joined, just send me an email with your Discord ID, and I will add you to the private channels. All right, so here you save, just to go back to the main question, saving the images in database and S3. So no, this is not what I mentioned. Like, we will not be saving the image, like all the media will go to S3 buckets, okay? All the media types like profile pictures, game covers, and so on and so forth. Every media, or like all the media types, or like all the media that we will need for our application, we will save them to the S3 bucket. So like, we will not save pictures into our database. Sorry if this was not clear from my side. All right, so next question. Will there be a session dedicated to testing? I guess there be something about unit testing, but what about integration tests and E2E ones and others? Yeah, of course, like we will have a complete sessions, not only one, but it will be many sessions about testing, generally speaking, unit testing, integration tests, and and also like E2E tests. We will see also like how to work with test containers and all that. So like we will see everything. So like, trust me, I will do my best not to miss any part which is important, that will help you whether improve yourself if you are working, or even help you get a job with today's technology challenges. Okay, so I think you missed link between backend and front-end part and auth provider keyclock. I'm about validation token, if I'm thinking in the right way. Sorry, I need to read the question again. I think you missed link between backend part and authentication provider. Let me double check. Okay, I think I get what you mean. So if I go back here, so you mean the link between the backend and the keyclock directly, like for validation, for the token validation. Yes, but in my mind, in my brain, I assumed that this also the same link, but we can also add it now. So it's gonna be like, it's totally fine. So it will be something like this. So if this is what you want, I just didn't want to have a link like this just because it's crossing with this one, but we can keep it. It's perfectly fine. All right, so let's go back. So here, are we going to work with Spring Cloud? So I think so. Like the fast answer is no. But maybe in the future we can also, for example, include an API gateway, and this is part of Spring Cloud. But what I mentioned when launching this bootcamp, we said that the same application, so like we will finish implementing the backend and the front end, and at the end, if you are still interested, we can also do a migration from the current architecture, or like, I'm talking about only the backend, right? Not the full application. But I'm talking about the backend, so like we can also migrate it from this monolith or like monolith architecture to microservices architecture, and then we can see in deep the Spring Cloud part. All right, so hi, thank you for explanation. We will use Flyway for database migration. Yes, absolutely. Oh, hi, I know this guy, by the way. All right, yeah, of course we will use Flyway for database migration because it's really important. So that's okay. I didn't think that it's really important to mention it in the architecture or like in the system design, because it's something that we can use under the hood. All right, so from Junior, what is your email address, please? So it's okay, so maybe I will put it in the chat. It's buali.social at gmail.com. All right. So let me just make sure. Yes. Okay, so I just posted it in the chat. You can check it there. All right, so let's build a RESTful API. Yeah, of course we will build a RESTful API. So what do we have here? At the last stream, you said that you will try to find for us some helpful documentation. Okay, so honestly, I forgot, to be honest. I forgot to look for that, but I have on mind. Okay, let me take note. That would be better. Let me add it to my to-do list. I need a pen. Yeah. So like this, I will not forget. All right, so I took note of that. So next time I will not forget it. All right. Okay. So do you have, by the way, this is my email address where you can send me an email if you have any issues. Also, like you can reach out to me on Discord server if you are part or like if you are in, and so on and so forth. Do you have, so first, like my question. So like now I want to ask a question. Do you like today's format? So like me going through almost the full session, doing what I already planned, and then we have this Q&A session or like this discussion, or you prefer a different format? So if this is fine, just type yes. If you have any other suggestions, just go ahead and let me know what do you prefer instead. And also, if you still have any other questions, go ahead and ask them. Okay, so can you give some advice where I can find some resources which helps me to dive into CDN technology, want to improve file management in my company project? Okay. So what, like, if it was for me to do that, or like to dig into CDN. So first I will start Googling and understand what a CDN is exactly. So like what a CDN does. All right. And then I would compare the different CDN solutions provided in the market. So like CloudFront, like Verizon, like any other CDN. So start comparing them, see what are the like the key differences, advantages, disadvantages of each one, and then just pick the easiest one. I mean the easiest from integration wise, also like free, if it's free or paid, and so on and so forth. And I would try to integrate it into my application. Watch out the performance, check if everything is fine, and so on and so forth. So this is how I would do it. But also just try to search on YouTube. You might find some useful solutions, not solutions, but useful videos about CDN technologies. All right, so I see that this format is perfectly fine for you, which is also fine for me. All right, so can you teach us how you search in documentation or elsewhere? Yes, we will see that, because when it comes to the Kicklock listener, because for me the first time when I implemented my first Kicklock listener, I didn't even know that we can do such thing. But I started searching the internet and reading the Kicklock documentation, and then I was just following the Kicklock documentation in order to implement it. So even in this course or in this bootcamp, I will do it in the same way. All right, so like I will assume that I don't know anything about the listener and how I would go and read and learn about it and how to set up a listener for my application. So I will teach you how to do that. All right. So for the rest, everything is fine. We have another question from Junior. For file or documents management, I can propose Doxys, which is great also. All right. Okay. So I don't know, like maybe for the application, or like for this application, maybe like it's great to share with the others. But for this application, I already decided to use S3 bucket and CloudFront from AWS. But we can also see that if we have the time. All right, so yeah, it's cool to have some conversation with you after a lecture. Okay, so you mean by lecture like the full session, or for example, when as we did today? So for example, after the business requirement, we have a discussion, and then we move to the system design. So is this what you meant, right? Just correct me if I'm not wrong. Other than that, if you have further questions, please go ahead. Just ask your questions, and like for the video, it will be available immediately after the end of this live streaming. It will be directly available in my YouTube channel, so you can check it. You can check it there. All right. So maybe from Volodymyr, if you have another question, or like if I answered your question, just let me know. Otherwise, if you don't have any further questions or any further comments, I think this is the end of today's session. Okay, so yeah, this is what Vladimir answered already. So yeah, session with some theory part and practical part without coding in the future. Yeah, this is absolutely, like, so many parts. We will do them, like we will start them theoretically, and then I will show you how to transform or how to switch this theory to oh my god, to a code. All right, like, excuse me, sometimes like I just lose the words. Okay, do you have any further questions? So by the way, I'm really happy that we are like so many people have joined the bootcamp. This means a lot to me. This means that there is a trust between us. This means that you like the content, that you trust the content, that you like the way I'm teaching, which is super important, and it means really a lot for me. So I really appreciate it. All right, so from Stump, I have a question about the bootcamp format. As I remember, at the end, we will have some one-to-one sync with you, like small talking or something. So yes, this is part of the bootcamp. So like, this is what I offered for the bootcamp. You can choose any time. We can have a one-to-one anytime. So it's going to be one session. So like, I would say try to be wise when to choose it. So if you want, like, whether at the end, so for example, if you have some code that you implemented, or like if you're implementing an application and you want to have a review, or even like if you want to have a chat with me like privately or something like that, that would be also perfectly fine. So yeah, this is what a one-to-one session means. All right, so what's the plan for the next session? So I will prepare it, so don't rush. Be patient, and it's gonna be surprise. Well, surprise, because like we will start implementing the application, but for now we will continue with designing, because the most important part is like having a well-designed application, like from all the sides, like the architecture side. When it comes to the backend, we need to have a good database design, a good system design, a good class diagram, or like a class diagram design, and so on and so forth, just to know all the building blocks of each part. All right, so like, this is what we will be doing in the next sessions, not only one session. Just we will go step by step through implementing the application. For the email server, which one we will use? A good question. So we can, like, by default, we can use Gmail, the Gmail server, just to send emails. Otherwise, for example, if you have your own, let me think. So for example, if you have your own email address and you want to use that one as or your own email server, I mean, you can also like use that one. But the setup is quite simple, so it doesn't require a lot of knowledge, or like it's not that complicated, or like, I would say it's not complicated at all. All right. So yep. Any further questions? So if you don't have any other questions, I would thank you again for today's sessions, for joining the session. And yeah, one important thing. So from now on, the live will be always on Sunday. All right, like the same time as today, but instead of Saturday it will be Sunday. So this will give me some time to prepare the material, to prepare anything that we need for this session. So so like the last question, so we get only one session with you where you can review some code. Yes, so for now, like the format is one session, but I would say like I'm 100% flexible. So if you need more or something like that, we can also check and discuss that. All right, guys. So thank you so much. Again, it's been a pleasure. I enjoyed it with you today. So don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to add your comments, and also just if you want to, just invite your friends and share it with anyone who might be interested in learning and in joining our bootcamp. For that, thank you so much and see you next time.